All this economic turmoil is identified today with the term Great Depression. So the Great Depression is a big deal, not only to the U.S. narrative and history, but also the world as a whole. Very staggering numbers are going to sweep across these nations' economies, and we spent a long time analyzing all of them. I think one, though, that is very significant is the amount of people who didn't have jobs. In the United States, an average of 25% of the employees, people who wanted to work, were unable to find a job. And that's significant. 1 out of 4 people unable to work. And many of those who were working were often underemployed, meaning they were performing jobs that were well below their skill sets. Attempts to respond included the raise of tariffs and isolation. These have been policies of the past. But this was a new economy. This was a very interdependent economy, a global economy, if you will, one in which markets were interacting with one another. Taxing imports with tariffs to protect domestic industry. The problem is that this, really creates really no solution for your trading partners. Interdependence of the world's economy in the post-World War I era had made it ineffective and actually worsened the effects. The government's role to rebound becomes the alternative. The term Keynesian economics, named for John Maynard Keynes, British economist, is going to recognize as a response of government spending for money that they didn't have. This is called deficit spending, and this is definitely a topic of even today's society. Government spending deficits, money they don't have to help out in industry or economic ways to provide security for people. This obviously brings many to debate the extent of what the role of the government should be. We talked about capitalism versus socialism, and this Keynesian economics is really kind of a little bit of both. The extent of this role of government, of course, how do you pay back the money? And those are decisions that these nations will have to make as they implement these plans. Several nations are going to allow their democracies to choose socialist principles in order to prevent collapse. Great Britain probably to a lesser extent does this. France definitely to a greater extent does this. The nations of Scandinavia really go all in with socialism through the venue of democratic choice. The United States kind of takes a middle road. There's some blocking powers here of FDR's New Deal plan with Supreme Court decisions that are really going to call many of the government-funded programs unconstitutional. So there's a constant struggle for how much government is too much government when it comes to aiding the economy and aiding really all the citizens. The most lasting and severe impacts of the post-World War I economic hardship, though, are going to be felt on Europe. The most severe issues will often bring the most extreme measures as a response. Fascism then becomes an ideological approach to bring these nations back to their glory days. Fascism centers around some major themes: nationalism, militarism, industrial investment through really business investment, and then of course obedience. Much of the post-World War I European fascism rises to power will be legitimate. These people aren't going to necessarily create coups to seize power, yet their actions are not necessarily moral. Italy is the first to turn to fascism. With a struggling economy, threats of power, the king is going to turn to fascist leader Benito Mussolini to lead his group to fix the problems of Italy. This provides an opportunity for Il Duce, as he's known, to eliminate his opponents, establish himself as the dictator, and the democracy is going to be a thing of the past. This will, of course, bring about campaigns of oppression to the people using both fascist and totalitarian principles. Basically, it's all justifiable because, as you can see, Italy's getting stronger and better, returning to its glory days. Germany's floundering will bring about a fascist movement as well, and the identity of the Nazis, the leadership, of course, from Adolf Hitler, making a potential solution for their problems. Hitler rises to the position of chancellor legitimately in 1933 and quickly begins a systematic elimination of his enemies. Hitler would use all of the characteristics of totalitarian leadership to establish German power while uniting its population and scapegoating minorities to lessen the sense of injustice. So as we continue this theme, we're going to see how these individuals are going to lead their nations really on a crash course for an attempt to world domination, but really on a crash course of destruction.